All right, welcome back to an episode of the podcast. Today we are talking with Matthew. How are you, sir?
Oh, not too bad. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Enjoying the somewhat decent weather we had today.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am new to the area, but not new to the area. I am 32 years old. I lived here. I was actually born in Roanoke. So I lived here till I was about fourth grade. I We moved away, kind of just moved a couple states. South Carolina is where I kind of began my whole culinary journey, and then Kentucky, and I lived in Indiana, and I moved here back in December. So I'm back home.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, just out of curiosity, um, what led you to become a chef?
Um, I I always tell people as a joke when I was going to school, I got a couple semesters free because of my dad's job at the time, and so I was trying to choose a major, and I couldn't really figure out what I was going to do. So I knew that I could cook and all that stuff, but I didn't know everything obviously, and I said, well, I'll just do culinary school because that seems like an easy choice. Um, that's a biggest mistake that you can make. It's definitely not easy at all. But I think more the real answer to that is more just. I guess I remember waking up when I was a kid, actually in this house, and smelling breakfast, and then getting lunch during the middle of the day out in the field while Granddad was doing hay, and then having dinner, and just having my grandma constantly kind of like between the running the farm, she was kind of constantly cooking. So I remember growing up, kneading dough and doing things with grandma. And then on the flip side, that's my dad's parents, obvious, but mom's parents. Her dad was a championship fly fisherman, so we had fresh fish. He had a really huge garden, so we always had garden fresh vegetables. So even when I was down there, I was constantly surrounded by good fresh ingredients and people cooking pretty much all the time. And I think that's kind of I think it kind of just embedded itself into me, and just kind of moving forward through life, just kind of manifested itself as I went along.
Very cool. Um, do you have a certain chef that you're inspired by, if any at all?
Um, if I had to say, I have two chefs kind of in my back pocket at all times that I kind of look up to. One, I look up to Sean Brock, and the reason being is he's actually from Virginia as well. I can't remember exactly where, but so he's like really deep embedded in that Appalachian culture, and um, that's kind of where my specialty lies is kind of taking the food that my grandma made and the mountain food that I've grown up around and kind of making it into something that's a little bit more upscale and a little bit more elevated. So he's kind of been really successful at that, and I like to I have all his books and things like that. And I like to watch his stuff and listen to him, just kind of read up on him and things, just to get inspiration and things. And then the second person that I kind of look up to was Bourdain, and Anthony just had this. I don't know how to say this other than I don't really recognize Anthony for his food accomplishments as much as his humanitarian efforts, and just kind of the education that he brought in his shows to not only the different cultural foods that he ate, but also that just kind of like giving that real in-depth look into life, and just kind of how he lived. I resonate with in my younger life, just kind of just running wild and kind of growing up a little bit and sobering up and doing things like that. I have kind of found a new appreciation for him in general.
Very cool. Yeah, I thought he was a very, very cool person to watch.
Oh, for sure.
So being a personal chef, have you worked with anybody, famous, or do you just do like catering events, or how does that kind of thing work?
So, really, right now, what it looks like is I'm kind of just starting. So when I moved back, I actually moved back into my parents' house, which was where my grandma lived her entire life, and her mom was on the property too. I mean, it's this property is hundreds of years old. It's been in the family forever, and so when I came back, one of the things that I was kind of struggling with was kitchen life in general. I had a really big health incident in, I think it was October, and it kind of changed my mindset about what's important in life. So when I got here, I kind of sat down with mom and I was like, I just don't know if I can do it anymore. And I got provided by the mayor of Pulaski this opportunity to make his Christmas dinner for his work. He owns a produce stand, so for his work family and his actual family. And I kind of just did those two things, and I kind of realized that I really, really liked it. I like not having the rush and not having to be real stressed and things like that. So I kind of just started it. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm taking everything that I can. I have worked with Chef T a little bit, kind of just learning the ropes and seeing how that works out. I saw you did a podcast with her for a couple weeks ago. It was like a month ago almost.
Yeah.
And then I went from, kind of working with her and learning from her. And so I'm just kind of gleaming off of that a little bit and just kind of starting myself out a little bit. So.
Very cool. Yeah, it was very nice to talk to her and learn about her background. For me, I just love talking to people and learning about who they are, and for some people there are certain things that trigger what they end up doing in life. So it's always really cool to see.
Yeah.
What would you say your signature dishes are, if you have any?
So I do like a couple signature things that aren't necessarily dishes as a whole. I have a tomato bacon jam that people talk about, in Pulaski. It's kind of something I stumbled upon one day. I think I was actually trying to make a hot vinaigrette, and I just cooked it too long. And I discovered that actually kind of worked. And then I put tomatoes into it, and here we are. So I've got this jam that I kind of use here and there. And then really, I don't really have, like I said, I don't have any signature dishes. I just kind of take everything that I do. I kind of gleam off of what my grandmother was making, and I just kind of make it to a point where it's it's a little bit refined, I would say, for sure.
Very cool. So, in your culinary journey, have you worked with any restaurants?
Yeah, so off and on, I was in the industry for about 13 years or so, but the past 6 years of my life, I've been kind of developing my skill, and part of that was just working in restaurants. In Kentucky, I started my journey again, I guess, at a place at I think it's called the Trustees Table at Shaker Village, which is it's like a historical site there, and they have a kind of a fine dining restaurant there. And I kind of came in, and the first day I haven't walked in a kitchen in probably, I don't know, probably 3 years professionally, and maybe four. And I walked in, and they threw me on saute, and we had 200 covers that night in a 45-seat restaurant. So there was no time to kind of screw around. I just kind of jumped in there and started it, and kind of refound my love for it, I think. And then from there, I just kind of bounced from restaurant to restaurant. Most of them, actually, I don't think any of them have been big. I think the only commercial kitchen I've worked in was this place called Biaggi's in Evansville, Indiana, and it's just a Italian restaurant chain. And it was a really high volume. That restaurant taught me a lot about speed and efficiency and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I've just kind of bounced around really, little local restaurants.
That's very cool though, because you can pick up a lot of different techniques, I would imagine, and then you're able to pick up the culture that they have as well.
Oh, for sure. And that's kind of one of my, I mean, you said culture, and that's kind of one of my things with leaving the restaurant is like I think I mentioned before, I had 3 blood clots in my lungs in October. And I woke up on the floor in my house with, paramedics around me, and I was sitting at a good like 5% oxygen level. So I was just actively dying on my floor. And when I got to a point where I got back to the restaurant, I kind of realized that the life wasn't for me anymore, because I think the culture of the restaurant industry sometimes is a little bit toxic. And at that moment I did 3 or 4 things, but one of the biggest things is I got sober. And then after I got sober, I kind of moved on to kind of working my way out of the industry a little bit, just kind of creating some space between me and the restaurant. And then the final step was just kind of moving here. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, man, I didn't think I was ever going to cook again. And when I started this business, and me and Mom kind of worked out the way that it was going to work, I'm kind of going forward with this attitude of creating a culture around food that's not necessarily this intimidating thing that people think it is. I want people to be able to work with me, and then at the end of the day, still want to be friends with me. So I have to. I'm kind of in that little area right now of trying to figure out what I want to do in the future, and when I hire people, how I want to be personally, how personable I want to be, and how much I want to be friendly, and trying to figure out a way to be the boss, but to be a kind person at the same time, if that makes sense. So
Right. Do you have any plans, in the future at some point to maybe open up a restaurant of your own, or like just like a business model with what you're trying to do now?
so there is something in the works that is kind of hush hush right now that's coming up, that I will be kind of working with a couple of people locally with, and kind of going into that. That's always been kind of my end goal would be to have a good set of partners that I can really work with, and then develop kind of like a good menu that's affordable, but still uses quality ingredients and things like that, but kind of embraces the culture of the Appalachians, just in general. And I have found a couple of people that I think are going to be a good fit for that, and we're in the talks right now. But moving forward, I think that's going to be something that comes into fruition, which I'm really excited about, actually. But
That's cool.
I've definitely never wanted to own a restaurant. I'm not, the whole, even the small business thing for me is a little bit more stressful than I'd like it to be. So having a restaurant kind of seems like a big step.
Right. Yeah, I would imagine, any business, especially right now, having a hard time trying to find people, and then if, getting people that are going to be beneficial to your business as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would imagine, like anything else in life, that when you become a chef, it's got to be a passion type of career.
Yeah. It is something, and I was actually having this conversation with somebody the other day. This is funny, but it is something that I do sometimes wake up and struggle with at this point. Is am I going to cook today, or am I going to just do whatever? And I find that even when my passion is just completely diminished, or I'm exhausted, or anything like that, I often will just get up and like cut an onion. or cut an apple, or just pick up my knife and start doing something. And the next thing I know, I've got a full meal for like 10 people that I don't need. It's just I kind of just I if I go, it'll be all right. But it is something that to get to the level that I'm at, and then the level that I want to be, I understand that it does take a lot of dedication. The passion is always there. It's the putting it into practice sometimes that's a little bit harder, for sure.
Yeah, and I can understand that. You want to do something and you do really well at it for a while, and then you kind of get burnt out on it a little bit. But once you start doing whatever it is that you're passionate about, it's almost like you're having fun while you're doing it again.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with the business. Is it was getting to the point where I was getting burned out, with doing it, as well as the culture and the people that I was working with in Evansville were wonderful people, and we had created this wonderful culture. I was just, to be perfectly honest with you, I was just tired of it. And so coming back home and coming over the mountain and seeing, being out here and being able to look out in the field and smell the smells around, and do the things that I do around the farm, it has helped out tremendously, because I'm able to actually get back to a point where that passion is, I guess, put into practice again, and I'm just having the best time doing it. So it's a great time for sure.
And yeah, and doing what I do, because not only do I run the YouTube channel, but I do the podcasting. I also work full time at Firestone too, so it can get a bit overwhelming, and sometimes you got to take a step back and kind of take a breath.
Oh, for
So
sure,
I understand that.
for sure.
Um, so what kind of stuff have you worked with Chef T on?
So the last thing that we did together, I kind of just, I think more than anything, I was just kind of hopping along with her, and we were kind of, just like I said, we were just cooking together and having a great time. But we were just kind of bopping around doing little events here and there. We did drag brunches in Roanoke, which is, I think, when we actually talked was after one of those. And I think the last thing we did a benefit for a school in town that's no longer, it doesn't exist anymore, but they're taking the school and they're going to make this kind of really cool community center, childcare, things like that, out of it. And I think that was the last thing that we did, is we cooked for that event together. So
Very cool.
yeah, it was a cool event. It really was, and the food was great. So
And it's definitely nice to meet people like you guys that are trying to better the community, and that you're making people happy, even if it's through food. Because,
oh
ultimately, food brings everybody together.
oh yeah.
Um, so, one of the things that I was curious about, because I was trying to poke around your Instagram, is you have a lot of really cool looking dishes on there. If you had to pick one of the favorites that you've made, do you have a favorite?
Um, I think one of my favorite was actually a mistake, and it was I don't even know if, it might not even be on my Instagram. It may have been on the restaurant website, but I actually made this. I made this shrimp and polenta dish, which was basically just me kind of going off of a shrimp and grits, and I did like a lobster cream with it. But what I did is I cooked my polenta too thick, so when I came back through, instead of thinking, I put it in the cooler for the night, and then I was going to come back and fix it in the morning, and it kind of hit me about like 2 a.m. that night. I was like, why don't I just cut it out and like fry it? So I cut it out in little circles, and I fried it, and then I just put the shrimp on top and kind of decorated it with the lobster cream. And that was like one of those mistake dishes that actually ended up looking really, really cool because you got like, you still got the normal 5 shrimp, but it was on little, cool little discs, and they were fried and it was delicious. Oh, it was awesome. But I don't know if that one was on my Instagram, but that has to be one of the favorite ones that I've made probably the past year. And then the other one that I did just recently, I have never done, and I kind of kicked myself because I basically grew up in South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, but I've never done a low country boil, and I did one probably about 2 weeks ago, and it was awesome. I had the best time doing it. I mean, I did everything. I laid out the paper on the table and just dumped it all over the table. I mean, it was great, and we all just kind of sat around and picked out of the pile. So that was probably one of my favorite things that I've done so far, for sure.
Now, for some of those who don't know what a low country boil is, can you explain that and the process of how to make it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. So I did it a little bit different than I think most people probably do it. But what I do is what I did is I took some new potatoes and some, which are just little tiny potatoes, and then some corn, and I think I did some sweet vidalias and some asparagus, and I kind of just threw all those on the grill. And let those cook for a little bit, not too long, but enough to get that grill flavor in there. And then I basically just, I don't know, I cut up an onion and cooked it down in a pot, and then added a whole bunch of chicken stock and some, old shrimp shells that I had in the freezer, and just kind of buffed that up, and then added the vegetables in there to cook the rest of the way. And then once those were cooked, I threw some good shrimp in there, some sausage, and some crab legs, and I seasoned the crap out of it with basically, I'd say probably just like an Old Bay kind of seasoning. And then I cooked them until everything was nice and tender. And then I strained it and actually used that stock from all that to make a kind of an emulsified butter for a dipping sauce, basically. But after that, I mean, I kind of just dumped it all over the table and we just ate it. It was great.
That's very cool. So, for those who want to reach out to you about any catering an event or anything like that, how do we find you?
So the best way to do it is to look at probably my Instagram, which is going to be the Serendipity Chef, and all one word. And then I also have a Facebook page as well, called the Serendipity Chef. And then I'm pretty sure on my Instagram there is at least one picture of my business card. But if not, just instant message me there, and we'll hook up and do the thing.
Very cool. One last question for you. And being in the Roanoke area and I can't talk. The Pulaski area, do you have a favorite restaurant that's local or multiple?
Right now, if I'm gonna go fancy, I'm always gonna go support my guys at the Black Hen in Blacksburg. I really just enjoy the consistency that they have. And then if I'm gonna go kind of just like casual, I guess, I really like. I'm a huge fan of pizza, and I really like Brick House in Radford. We will order from there and pick it up, and they've got a great tap selection and bar selection as well. So they're always doing concerts and things like that, and it's a really cool atmosphere. And then if I'm going to be honest, if I'm going cheap, I'm going to the Dog House, because your boy loves some hot dogs, and they have some of the best hot dogs I've ever had.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, hey man, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me. It was very, very cool. I
Yeah.
learned a lot.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate being
Um,
here, man.
yeah, absolutely, and definitely. When you guys get that venture launched, let me know, and I'll promote it any way I can for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you know when it's coming up. It's going to be a little bit, but I think we're gonna start rolling on it. So I'm pretty excited.
Very cool. It sounds like the future is up and beyond at this point for you, and I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. I hope you have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
All right.